Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Queer Conversations. Hey, beautiful people. I'm here today with our lovely guest, Yesley.
Hey
Yesley,
y'all.
why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh, okay. Well, my name is Yesley. We already went through that part. Let's see. I'm 23 for the fifth time. I live in Southern Maryland. I love it. I come out of my neighborhood and I see the farm. I love it so much.
Oh my
It's so
gosh.
beautiful. I know. It's so beautiful. Wild turkeys run in my front yard. My dog takes off all the time. I was gonna scream, "Big in the house!" We won't get into that. But yes, let's see. I used to be a hair and makeup artist, and now I'm in school for interior design.
Oh, awesome.
Let's see what else. There's not much to say. I love anything beauty. I love to talk. I love to talk, but it has to be something good.
That's why
Don't
we're
waste
on.
my time.
That's why we're on Queer Conversations.
Don't waste my time. Because if it's boring, I'm gonna be like, okay,
Exactly.
gotta go.
Now, how
Yes.
can you be reached on social media?
Oh, you can find me at home with Yesley, Yesli.
Oh, I love that. That is so
Thank
cute. Okay, so let's get into some sizzling subjects. Okay, so we know
you.
that Meghan Markle
hmm
had the beautiful baby boy. By the time you all see this, this might be old news, but it's still news to me. And they just introduced the baby to the world. So tell me how you feel about having finally a person of African American descent part of the royal family.
Okay, so I just want to comment real quick. That's
Okay.
the first time anybody has ever been bold enough to ask me a question of that, being that I'm not African descent. I appreciate that.
Oh,
Thank
yes,
you.
girl.
Thank
We
you.
want everybody's opinion.
I think it's fantastic because I think we're in a time where technology is so advanced that it's teaching us so many things about our past that was hidden from us. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Black people are the original royalty. Before any king, queen, princess, prince, any of that existed within the European culture, it was already in Africa. So to
You better
see it
preach.
come back, in
Hmm.
this time of age where they continuously try to suppress us, I think it's amazing. It's kind of like we're coming back, get it together. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Bow to the queen. Amen. Yes, yes. I love that you said that because I think in our culture, in American society, in
Mhm.
American culture, for some reason, they believe, a lot of folks believe
Mhm.
that our history and who we are began with slavery.
Mm-mm.
And it did not. And to remember that we are royalty, that we
Mhm.
came from royalty,
Mhm.
we came from technology and
Mhm.
science and all of
Absolutely.
those things, and to see it come back full circle is wonderful.
Absolutely.
Even though there's some things going on over in the United Kingdom that I don't necessarily agree with, it is good to see that we have a person of African American descent
Mhm.
part of the royal family.
Mhm.
Now, there was also a reporter
Mhm.
who is a part of BBC, which is the television network there,
Mhm.
who made a comment that referred to the royal baby, Archie,
Mhm.
compared him to a chimp.
Well,
I know, isn't that like ridiculous?
you would think that we would be past
You would think.
the very low, poor, just poor vocabulary of
Hmm.
insults.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
It's very unfortunate, but that's just kind of the day and age that we live in. And I find it really interesting because I have a friend, and her family's from Africa. They're Nigerian,
Hmm.
and she goes to Africa a lot. She's actually about to leave to go live there.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I asked her a lot of questions. I said, so how is it for you as an American to go to Africa? Like, is it really what they teach us on television? Is it really what you're seeing on social media? And she was just like, it's not what people portray it to be, because you go to Africa and people are happy because they're used to seeing each other,
Right,
So this
right,
is normal. When you go to a country where you're supposedly the minority, they treat you differently. You
right.
know what I mean? So I found it really interesting that she was like, when they see a Caucasian person or a person who is not black walking the streets, they're the ones who turn around and are like, "Oh, what is this?" And I just think that's so mind blowing. Like, okay, I can see that. That's pretty awesome.
That would be interesting to experience. I would
Yeah.
love to see that. So I have another question for you.
hmm
So some of the beauty trends that are coming out now, how do you feel about the change in makeup and the change in dynamic of what society is deeming beautiful?
So when I was younger, and I was in, the makeup scene,
Hmm.
I really enjoyed the heavy, heavy makeup. I did. I really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, this is great. Oh my God, this is amazing. Like it just never ending. I went through makeup so
Right.
much. But as I got older and you get a real life, you get a job, you have a family, you got a dog, maybe a cat, I don't know, a grandmother, you realize like, okay, I don't have time to spend an hour pounding makeup on in front of the mirror,
Right. Right.
and you realize that the little bit that you do put on,
Hmm.
it's still beautiful as long as you do it right.
Exactly.
And so that's what I think of that. I feel like the Kim Kardashian situation is so
See,
overplayed,
I keep saying I do
so
not want to give the
overdue.
Kardashians any of our airtime because they get so much airtime.
Yes.
But it's like you can't not talk about them when you talk about beauty, when you talk about trends, when you talk about plastic surgery, any scandal, the Kardashians is a part of it. You
Right.
know what I mean?
I do agree. I do agree, but however, I feel like the Kardashians, and if I may be so bold to say, the Kardashians are famous because they took Black culture and made it their
Oh,
own.
yes, it's
You know
definitely
what I mean? Because
appropriation.
it, if they hadn't, I mean, come on, let's be honest. All the surgery they got to look the way they did, they wouldn't have been this famous had they been flapjacks. You understand what I'm saying to you?
You mean
Like,
flat and flat?
either way, you understand. And so
Right,
I
right,
feel
right.
like at this point it's just overplayed. Like, okay, Kim, we see that you got hips and you got a butt and you got a tiny waist. What's new? What's next?
Exactly. I've been
Show me
seeing that my
something.
whole life.
Like
Hello.
what?
My grandmother and my mother both were snatched.
Hmm.
So it's nothing new in our culture.
Right,
Now,
right.
recently the Met Gala took place.
Yes.
How did you feel about all of the costumes and the dresses and the over the top culture there?
Well, I think when it comes to the Met Gala, everything is over the top.
I
You
know,
have to be
it's
over the top
beautiful.
just
Ugh,
to
yes.
get seen.
Hmm.
That's what it's about.
Yeah,
Who's gonna do it the biggest, the
exactly.
bestest, so that they'll be the next, person to be talked about.
Yeah.
But I think that it was beautiful. Some people, was questionable, makes you want to scratch your scalp a little bit. But I thought in general, like Cardi B, she looked
Oh my gosh, it was
beautiful.
gorgeous.
Yes, the texture on that dress, the illusion of the dress.
Did you see Janelle Monae's dress with the
Yes,
blinking?
I saw with the blinking eyelash. I love that too. I feel like Janelle Monae is so out of the box.
Exactly.
You never know with her, and she's very unapologetic,
Yes.
which is what I love the most about her. She's not trying to follow all these trends of the skin tight dresses. She just wants to be,
She's very much
you know.
Janelle Monae.
Yes,
You
very
know?
very artistic. Her
Yes.
own artist.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Who were some of the other people that you saw at the gala that stood out to you?
Now I don't know his name, but he wore like a half tux, half dress. What? There was a young man that he had like I remember because I saw it on Instagram this morning. It was
The person
it
that stood
was.
out to me was Billy. He came as the sun god.
Oh, I didn't see that part.
Yes, you have to see it.
Okay,
So he came in with six men carrying
I saw
him.
it. Yes,
Yes.
loved it.
I was like,
Yes, Hunty.
talk
He took
about
it.
royalty.
Yeah.
Yes, God. I was like, Billy, you serving, honey.
Yes, he
So
took it for sure.
absolutely. I think he was the best, personally.
Mhm.
And Lena Waithe, she
Mhm.
was phenomenal in her suit. And
Mhm.
also, someone told me that the theme for Met Gala this year was camp. And camp is very much a gay man's fantasy. So I love the fact how our culture infiltrates everything.
Yes.
Black culture
Yes, it does.
infiltrates everything.
Yes.
We will be right back after this. We got to pay some bills. And let's check out this commercial spot from Same Gender Love, Love is Love Boutique. We are back. Had to pay some bills. And once again, we are here with our lovely guest, Yesley. So I have some questions for you.
Yes.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So the first thing I wanted to ask you is you and I spoke before. We have a
Yes.
mutual friend.
Yes.
And you said you met her in church.
Yes.
So tell me, how has church influenced your life as a person part of the LGBT community?
Oh, woo. That's deep. Do we have time for that?
We got time, girl. We got time.
Okay. So prior to me going to church, I never really did church. Growing up, I was raised, I guess you could say Catholic, but we never really went to church. It was just
Okay.
kind of like, God, pray. But how do I pray? You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of like a taboo, but an expected thing in my
Mm-hmm.
house. But my grandmother, she went to church very often, like faithfully.
Oh my gosh.
Like
Okay.
you're gonna go to hell if you're not in the church or whatever. Like it's very, very deep. Okay. So anywho, so I never grew up in the church, and when I finally came out when I was young, it was really hard because I came. You know, it's a Spanish household.
Mm-hmm.
They have expectations of you. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like we want you to be a doctor or a lawyer, but you can't stay after school because you need to be home cooking and cleaning. Because when you get a man, that's what they're gonna expect. Like
Yeah.
okay, right.
Yeah.
So, so you know, when I came out and I left my house and I started, you know, exploring, really dipping into the pool because I was in and out of the pool. Honey. I was this pool, that pool, over here, both pools were there. You know what I mean? Trying to get myself
Trying
together.
to figure it out.
Right.
Right. Right.
And so, I dated somebody for 8 years. It was like it was really, really bad. We wasted each other's time, quite frankly. But we were both really young. You know, we didn't really have a concept of what we're supposed to be doing.
Now, was that person male or female?
Female.
Okay.
Female. But while I was with her, I was sleeping around a lot with males. But I did it because I thought that that's what I had to do. I thought it was expected of me.
Really?
Yes, because when I was young, I was raped by my stepfather. That's another long story, and you're gonna have to bring me on another show.
Okay.
But
You'll come on.
yes. So when that happened, it really messed me up, and I thought that this is what I have to do. You know what I mean? So any man, boy that approached me, I was like, okay, you know, but I wasn't there. You know what I'm saying? So I was around, you know, but I did it because again, I thought it was what I was supposed to do.
So then now, how do you identify?
That's the thing. See, I don't. I'm just me. I'm just me. I'm married to a woman. I'm not, you know, I'm not checking out everybody who's like, what am I going to be interested in? I'm a very hard person to impress, first of all. Like,
I know that's, you better
I
say
just
it.
don't, it's, oh, you look, not, oh, okay, let's move on. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so, like, even my wife, when I met her, I didn't like her. I wasn't attracted to her at all. I didn't even want to give her the time of day.
Oh my goodness.
You know what I mean? But we became friends, and in our
Right.
friendship, the friendship grew, and that's how I eventually liked her. And as she says till this day, she's still here. That's what she says to everybody. Well, she's still here. You
Okay.
right?
She ain't
am.
like me, but she's still here.
Right. So I guess I did.
At what age did you officially come out? And when you came out, did you come out and say, I'm lesbian, I'm bisexual, I like who I like? Like, what was that conversation like with your family?
Oh, that was a bad one. Well, so when I was a teenager, I think the scene, the LGBTQ scene, still wasn't what it is now.
Right, it was very taboo.
Yes.
Because we're about the same age.
Yes.
And I know for me, it
25,
was,
yes.
yes, I'm a few times 25. We're going to stick with that. But back when I was younger, you know, it was completely unheard of. It was whispered about. It was,
Yes.
you know, he got a little sugar in his tank. You know what I mean? It was that kind of
Yes,
conversation.
yes,
so
yes.
it wasn't as open as it is now, where kids are who
Exactly.
are in grade school saying, you know, I like girls or I like
Yes,
boys.
yes.
So, I mean, and I'm saying this because I know in the Latino community and in the African American community, we have a lot of similarities and a lot of
Yes.
expectations, especially
Yes.
as women in the family.
Absolutely.
So when you are coming out, like, I didn't come out till I was 36. Yeah, I
okay.
was late. So how old were you when you came out?
16.
16. And it wasn't like, okay, so I'm gay or I'm a lesbian or?
No, it was like a lot of anxiety. Like, how am I going to say this? What exactly do I say? You have
Yeah.
that conversation in your head, like, okay, they're Catholic. They're going to hate me. I'm going to hell. This is what
Yeah,
it is.
I'm
Okay,
gonna
but
die.
if I don't tell her, she might find me in the street, or her friend might find me, and then she's going to find out through my friend. So I have to tell her. You know, it was real. That's really what it was. It was my mom and I, we had a rocky relationship. So I was trying to build her trust.
Right.
And so to me, in that moment, I felt when I realized who I was, what I liked, and where I wanted to be, I decided that I needed to be true to me. And being true to me is I have to be transparent to them.
Right, right.
And because my mom had a lot of friends, and I was very rebellious as a teen. Like, I was in a school, I was skipping at a skipping party. I don't know if you ever heard of those.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they were
We
deep.
from the same era.
Oh my God, they were good back in
And
the
see,
day.
and I was in Florida, so we would skip and go to the beach.
Oh, lucky. No, we were
Yeah.
skipping in somebody's basement, having a party in their basement. It was like intense, like the beer kegs and all. It was like,
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, like 3 o'clock, 12 in the afternoon, and we're partying. Like, what? Okay, but so I was very rebellious, and so I felt like I needed to be transparent with her because I wanted her to trust me. I wanted to have that
Right.
relationship with her. And so I decided, I had the whole conversation with myself, like, okay, we're just gonna tell her, because I had enough respect for my mom to tell her so that somebody else
Wouldn't
wouldn't
tell
be
her.
the one telling her.
You know, and I'm glad you said that because in our culture, in the African American culture, we're kind of, and in the era that I grew up in, we were kind of raised with the community, right? So if I did something at Mr. Edge house that's like 3 or 4 houses down, by the time I got home, I was getting a whooping or getting chastised again
Yes.
because I was disrespectful to Mr. Edge, right?
Yes.
And, you know, all of our community members kind of raised us together. So if it didn't matter where I was in the city, if I did something, my grandmother knew about it before I got back to the house. So I can understand and completely relate to the fact that I need to tell you before somebody else tell you. If they see me in the street and I'm doing
Yes.
something and come back home, you don't want to
Exactly.
have to deal with that type of backlash.
Exactly. I want you to hear it from me,
Right.
and not from what somebody saw and then added to it. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I was the rebellious kid. All my 2 sisters and my brother, they are very quiet. Like, you don't hear a peep from them. My mom was quiet. My dad is he has a temper, but he's still quiet. They're all quiet. But I'm the rebel. I'm like the that was always me. But
Right.
that's because my mom and my dad are my uncle and my aunt. They raised me since I was a baby. See, that's why I said you gotta bring me back, girl, 'cause it's a long story.
It's a lot.
Yes. So
We will be unpacking this for a while, just so you know.
So I was always the one that, the
Right.
what is the expression, the ugly duckling per se?
No, not the ugly duckling.
For lack of a better term, just
Okay.
the one that stood out.
Right.
You know
okay.
what I mean?
The black sheep. How about
Yes,
that one?
the black sheep. That's
Okay.
what it is. Yes. So when I came out to her back in that time, it wasn't like we're all here. Woo! There's support groups everywhere. It wasn't like that.
Right.
So so I just I said, Mom, I have to tell you something, and she was like, "What'd you do now?" And I was like, "Oh Lord, I gotta come out with it. Here we are, right?" So I told her, I said, "I'm gay." I didn't say lesbian. I just said I'm gay. You know what I mean? Because back in the day, it wasn't like all these terms that we have now. It was like, oh, they're gay.
The
You know what I mean?
alphabet. The alphabet.
Right. Yes, I say that too. Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only person who says it. So I just said, Mom, I'm gay. And she was like, what? And I was like, I'm gay. I have a girlfriend. I've always known since I was a kid. Like, she found me making out with a girl on the porch one time. Like, how can this be a surprise to you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Right. So we can't be too far off here, you know?
Right.
And so she didn't take it well, and she just looked at me and she said 2 things. She said, I've expected many things from you, but I never expected this.
Wow.
And then she started crying and she said, why would you do this to me? And that right there is what
That's
led me
like-
into the spiral of
yeah.
dipping into all the pools. Because
So then, and I'm glad you brought up the pools again, because we had a conversation before the conversation. So because you had this parallel where you slept with men and slept with
Yes.
women, you never considered yourself bisexual?
no.
Okay,
No.
so why not?
Because I was having sex with the men, but I wasn't there. It was just, like I said, I thought that that's what I had to do.
Okay, so you weren't building relationships
No.
with men? Okay.
No, I don't have a connection with men.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I get a lot of offers from men all the time, but I'm not interested. Half the time I'm not even noticing that they're staring at my face. You know what I mean? Because again, I'm just not easily impressed. I'm not here to look at you. I'm not here. I
Right.
got like 15 things on my mind. I'm like, okay, I gotta get to point A, point C. Okay, we gotta go. Come on, babe, let's go. We gotta go right now. And like the other day, I went to go pick her up from work. And mind you, I was not looking this good, okay? I had my PJs on.
She wasn't looking
My hair
this
was up in a
good.
bun, okay? And so I went to go pick up my wife, and she said, let me drive home. And I said, sure. So I get out the car, and I'm feeling like just, sluggish, I don't got nothing on, so nothing's tight, everything is just hanging, you know what I mean? So I get out the car, and I go to sit on the other side, and then we drive off. So we're in Costco, and she said, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to get a gun. And I was like, what? What's going on? What happened at work, And she's like, no. She said, man, there was this guy. And I was like, okay, what happened? I'm listening. Okay, what happened? Grabbing stuff. And she goes, when you came to pick me up and you got out the car, he just kept staring at you. He said, I literally had to stop and stare at him. And I was like, you did? And she was like, you didn't see? I was like, nah, I was just trying to get to point A to point B,
So then my next question is, do you feel like there's a taboo amongst people who identify as bisexual to actually express it? Like, do you think that we're forced to decide as opposed to having those interactions with both sexes?
I'm not really sure because that's a really hard question, simply because I don't identify as a bisexual person. I identify as myself, Yesly. And so because I don't identify as that, I don't think to myself,
right.
How do people feel about me? You know what I mean?
Right.
When people ask me, like I told you earlier, somebody asked me, oh, do you have kids? Are you married? I say, yes, I have a wife. That's as far as it goes. Like, I'm not about to sit here and pull out the flag and be like, woo! So that is hard, but I would think from the bisexual friends that I do have, I would think that maybe they do feel pressured, that they have to choose one or the other. But again, and that's why I say to you, I don't like categorizing things because even within our community, we have expectations of ourselves, but we don't like it when the outer world has expectations of us.
Don't put me in a box. Let me put myself in a box.
Right.
But then you get this pressure to either be femme or be stud or be lesbian, gay, bisexual.
Oh, but see, and I think that, okay, so I think the whole stud and femme thing, whether man or woman, I think that all stems from the media.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because I know as a kid, as an adult looking back at the few times I watched TV, because as a child, we were very, my parents kept the household very cultured, like we were still in El Salvador. So TV wasn't really a thing. We played outside a lot. Like we didn't eat out of boxes or cans. My mom made everything homemade while still working 2 jobs. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know what Olive Garden was until I was like 22. You know what I mean? I didn't know what Maggiano's was, all these simple things. Like Chipotle, I discovered it when I was 17, and girl, I swallowed that burrito like I never ate. You know what I mean? I was like, what is this? Like I didn't know these things. Our parents kept us very much
cultured,
in the culture. So when I became a teenager and, I didn't play outside anymore, I was more in the house, I started watching more TV. So now as an adult, when I look back, I realized a lot of the things that they showed us when it came to particularly gay men, they always made them feminine.
Super feminine, yes.
But that's not necessarily who they are.
Oh, it's not.
And I think a lot of the younger generation, this generation, a lot of them are feminine because it's what they see, is because it's the expectation that they think they're supposed to, the expectation that people have for them.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
For example, I have a friend, and now I don't know the proper terms how it goes, but she's transgender.
Okay.
So that's male to female, right?
Correct.
Okay, so she's transgender. And when I met her, she was like the nails up to here, the lashes up to here, the hair this big,
Right.
And she couldn't understand why people looked at her different. I kind of had to really break it down to her, like, babe, you want to be a woman? We don't go around looking like that. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I'm glad you touched on that subject. So do you think it was more, how can I say it? It wasn't necessarily about her being transgender. It was about her adapting the mannerisms and, but that's a beauty.
Culture.
Right, but that's a beauty thing. That's because as a woman, I don't wear 4-inch heels every single day.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like those things that I'm not a full beat every day.
Right.
But I think that the culture or maybe television gives a perception that this is how you should look if you want to be a woman. we just did a show not too long ago talking about the trans life and passing and things of that nature. And I think personally, a lot of transgender women stand out more because they are overdone. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
absolutely. And so the way I had to explain it to one of my heterosexual friends, because they were like, I just don't understand, they look like drag queens. And I told them, I said, but I could understand why they said that. Because, for example, my friend, she was just very exaggerated. It was obvious that
Right.
you are a male transitioning to female.
Okay.
And most of the people that I know who are transitioning don't want you to know that they're transitioning.
Correct.
They just
It's a
want
very
you to
private
know
process.
that yes, they just want you to know that they're a female. They don't want you to know that where they started. They want you to know where they are right now. You see what I'm saying? But if you're presenting to the world like you just came from a drag show, they're gonna look at you. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like you have to. So with my friend, I had to kind of be like, okay, let's tone it down a little bit. Let me do your makeup. Let
Okay.
me show you how beautiful.
And it
you
was done in
are.
love.
Absolutely. And she was
Absolutely.
very open to it. And ever since, she's never put on makeup like that again, or the big hair, or the crazy heels, or the crazy nails, because she found herself. Once she realized what her true beauty was and not what was expected of her, she was grounded.
Awesome.
You see what I'm saying?
I love that. And just for clarification, we know here at Queer Conversations that drag queens and transgender people are not the same thing.
Yes,
we
correct.
completely understand that it is
Yes.
absolutely disrespectful to think that a drag queen is a transgender person or vice versa.
Right.
They're not the same
Absolutely.
at all.
Absolutely.
Just for clarification.
Absolutely. Yes, because we don't want anybody to feel some kind of way.
Absolutely. We are definitely LGBTQIA+++ friendly.
Yes. Because I think that it's all about education, and I think even within our community, we still have a lot of educating ourselves to do.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
imagine people who are not even in the community.
Yeah.
They just,
Who are oblivious, and a lot of times they don't even want to get the education.
Yeah, this is true. And so back to my heterosexual friends, they were like, why do they look like drag queens? And I had to break it down to them like, listen, just because they are transitioning to a female doesn't mean that they know what that means. Just because I'm a woman, I was born a woman, doesn't mean that when I got my period, I knew what to do.
Exactly. That's a good. That's a good comparison.
You understand
I
what I'm
like
saying?
that.
If it took time for me to understand, okay, this is
Exactly.
my body, this is what happens, this is what I should do, this is what I shouldn't do, and I let somebody sit down and
explain
it
it.
to you.
Right.
You don't know. And there's a lot of us women walking around not knowing. They're just, day by day, however they can, however they figure it out. So
Right.
it's the same, I think it's the same process for a lot of people who are transitioning either from male to female and probably female to male.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You don't know. You just have these expectations. And every time you turn on the TV and everything now, you never see, one that with the
Rarely.
Timberlands and or just, regular pants and a shirt.
Right,
You don't see that. They always got on women's clothing, or they always feminine. So these kids are growing up, and if you have heterosexual parents who don't know, how can they lead you anywhere? You're just being led by what you're seeing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You're being programmed. You see what I'm saying?
It's funny because when I came out, it was like, oh, you're going to cut your hair. You're going to have these throwback braids.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm not turning into Chloe from Set It Off. No. I am still me.
Yes.
Just because my preference is my preference
Yes.
doesn't mean that I'm going to suddenly fit into this cookie cutter image of what society portrays a lesbian woman to be.
Exactly.
Or a super sexualized person, like suddenly I'm gonna walk around with like 5-inch heels on and thongs. No,
Oh no,
we don't do that.
I know. Like some of my heterosexual friends, when I came out, they instantly thought like my life became the L word. Like
Exactly.
that's not my life.
It is
I am not
real.
Shane.
It is not real. That is television. That is television.
Right. So, again, a lot of it is education, and we're categorized either into women being men or men being women.
Women, exactly.
Why? You know what I mean? Why?
But see, that's the age-old question, and that's part of the reason that Queer Conversations came about, because we are giving you life from the LGBT perspective, straight from the horse's mouth. You get it hopefully you'll get some clarification.
Yes.
Education and awareness is always super important.
Right.
Now, I did notice that you talk a lot about expectations.
Yes.
And I want to dig into that because I think as women growing up in our culture, there is a lot of expectation
Yes.
that's put on us.
Yes.
I remember being young and sitting in the kitchen with my grandmother. It was super important that I learned how to cook, that I learned how to clean, that I knew how to take care of my household. Do you find that in our culture as well that expectation gets thwarted when you start talking about our sexuality not being what they consider the norm?
That's a good question.
Well, thank you.
It's a very good
That's
question.
why I make the money. No.
I think it's a good question, and it led me really quickly, just a comment, because we never finished talking about how I ended up in the church. But
Yeah.
we'll get to that. I just want, because if somebody's watching, it's like, oh, wait a minute, they never got to that part.
Yeah, they never
Because
talked
I just
about it.
realized as you were saying that, I was like, we never got to that part. Okay, but you know what? That is a very good question. And I find it, I feel like that's the great debate
Okay.
in this time. Because I was having a conversation with my sister one day. And actually, with my sister, and funny enough, the next day with my boss. 2 separate questions, but they all led to the same thing.
Okay.
And they were complaining about their husband. Oh, they don't do nothing. You know, you always expected to do this, blah, blah. Can you believe this and that? And I'm like, well, you know, Alexis isn't like that. That's my wife. Well, you know, Alexis isn't like that. Oh, well, that's because she's a woman. It's like, And it really made me think. So when you said that, it made me link the two. I realized that, and this is what I have observed. It may not be like that in everybody's relationship. But what I have observed is that the lines become blurred.
When it's same gender.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think that, now this is just me saying, you know, just generalizing. Doesn't mean everybody's like that, but generalizing. Let's say within our cultures, if, you know, you're a woman, your partner's a woman, but as children you were raised in, you know, culturally. You were
Right.
expected to do these things, right?
Right.
So you grew up knowing that you gotta do these things because it's expected of you.
Right.
So when you come together with another woman or, you know, another man, if that is the way you were raised, the two of you do it. So then you're able to do it together as a unit and not just one person doing it. Unless, and this is from my personal experience, unless you're the kind of woman who sees yourself, identifies yourself a little bit more on, for lack of a better term, let's just use dominant.
Masculine?
Yes,
Masculine side, okay.
Masculine side, you know what I mean? Where you're more of the, I go to work, I wear the boots.
I provide.
Yes.
I kill the bugs.
Yes, and I have found that women who are like that are a little bit more old school.
Okay, so they fall into the more traditional roles of what heterosexual couples would look like.
Right. And you know, that's
Okay.
interesting because I know one time when I was working in the salon, one of my clients asked me, yes, are you married? Do you have kids? I said, yes, I have a wife. And she was like, and she really went into deep thought. And then she was like, I just gotta ask you a question. I hope you don't get offended. And I was like, okay. She said, if you like women, then why does one of them dress like a male? And I was like, but you know what? I can't.
I hate that question.
I can't even be offended
I
or
hate
feel any
that
kind of
question.
way. I can't feel any kind of way about it because when you think about it, in the heterosexual world, right, and what we've been taught since we were kids,
Right.
right? Blue is boy, pink
Pink
is girl.
Correct.
Skirts are girls, pants are boys. So when you see, a woman wearing pants or a man wearing a skirt, you're kind of like, but I thought they like
I
the same
understand.
gender.
Okay.
And so what I explained from my personal experiences, I said, well, it's not that I don't like women in skirts. If my wife decided one day that she was going to put on a sundress, I'm going to be like, okay, honey, well, if this is where we're going, this is the way we're going. I love you either way,
Right.
But for me, I grew up seeing that, having that in the household, the one that has the skirt and the one that has the pants.
Okay.
So for me, because I saw that, I naturally geared towards the person wearing the pants, even though I wear the pants too. But you know what I mean?
Right,
It's
I understand
kind of
exactly
just
what you
like
mean.
that's what you've seen, that's what you know, that's what you follow. You see what I'm saying?
I think the part that gets me is the expectation of the heterosexual world for us to fall into a category.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that triggers something for me. So if I tell someone that I'm a lesbian or I'm in a relationship with a woman, I'm married right now, without ever meeting my wife, the question is, so which one is the man? Neither of us are men. I married a woman.
Right.
And then, you know, well, if you are a lesbian and you like women, then why do you have penetration?
Right.
Or
Oh, yes.
why does your wife look like a guy? So, I mean, those questions like irk me, like the back of my hair stands up, you know, because to me, it's a very narrow-minded way of thinking.
Right.
But like you said, it is the heterosexual world looking for us to fit a certain
Right.
expectation. And that's why expectations keeps coming up in our conversation. I think that because of our culture, we're kind of raised with a way of thinking
Right.
women are supposed to be and men are supposed to be. And as young girls, we're taught to cater to, take care of our households, our
Right.
children, that kind of thing.
Right.
So, I mean, and you're right. I want to say that you are right when you are married to a woman or you're involved with a woman, because you both are kind of raised with that same expectation. You both do the same thing.
Right.
So, I mean, I think what I'm trying to get out of you
Okay.
is, because the expectation is there, being a member of the community, how has it changed your idea of expectations?
Expand.
So if the expectation is for you to cook, clean, have children, take care of the kids, that kind of thing, has it changed any since you have fully embraced being with a woman, married to a woman, and living in a woman-woman household?
No.
No.
Only because it's so embedded in me.
Okay.
Since I was like this big, I've been cleaning, you know, doing
Washing
all
clothes.
these things.
Right, right.
You know, when my siblings were little, I watched them. I couldn't go to the park. I had to watch them. I had to change
Oh,
the
okay.
diapers. I had to do the cooking and the cleaning.
I did that for my brothers also.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's so embedded in me that even if I tried, that's who I attract. You know, every relationship that I've had, they don't cook or clean. I mean, they can if they want to, if they absolutely have to,
Right.
but they don't. You
Okay.
know, like my wife, she's clean, but I'm a whole nother level. Like I told you, I have high expectations. So when I clean, I'm like on the floor washing baseboards. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm washing the wall. Don't touch that door. 'Cause now I gotta wash the door. You know what I mean? Like everything gets washed in my
Right.
house. So yes, but definitely no, because it's just so embedded in me. My
Okay.
wife cooks and cleans, and I appreciate it so much when she does. But when she goes to bed, I'm right behind her because it's me. You know what I
Right.
mean?
It's not clean until I clean it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So it's not necessarily that I'm unable to be able to, you know, accept that somebody else can do it. It's just really that has been put in me since I was a child, that it's like
Right.
you want me to undo 25 years of my life. You know what I mean?
We stick it to that 25. Stick it to the
Those were
25.
good times. So, you know, that's why for me, I still do the cooking and the cleaning. I'll
Right.
stress myself all the way out because I have that expectation
Of myself. Exactly.
You know what I mean? My wife will be like, I just told you I'll do it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, because you don't do it like this. I gotta go walk the dog. Let's go. You know what I mean? So it's me. It's not necessarily, but it is beautiful when I do have friends where they do the things together. They do the chores. They separate it, and
Right.
it's beautiful. And I'm talking about lesbian couples and gay couples. It's beautiful to see that they can coexist
And do it
things
together.
together as a team, as opposed to having the expectation of one person doing something. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I find and I think that's really hard because in my relationship, my wife can cook, she can clean, but she really is the money maker. Like that's her thing. Like she
Yeah.
just woo, she be like, Mike, here I go. You know what I mean? And me, I'm more of the, I'm gonna keep this house together.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? Everybody's in line. You know what I mean? Like everybody, the cat, the dog, the birds, they don't even come into the house. Everybody's
Right.
in line.
Now,
you know?
normally I would not ask this question, but I'm going to ask it
Okay.
because you mentioned children.
Okay, yeah.
How soon can we expect little Yesley?
Oh, the question that everybody's asking. We're looking to start conceiving next year.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yes, thank you.
So we'll have to have you come back on our show next
Okay.
season to talk about the process of
Okay.
having children and
Yes.
all of that.
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much have it down as far as what we want to do. We already have our donor. He's a very, very close friend of mine.
That's so
We're very
great.
close. And the one thing about me that I think that this is a general thing, but I think definitely with me is I'm the kind of person that I show a lot of love.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid to tell my friends I love you, male or female. You know what I mean? I'll hug them
Right.
and I'll be like, I love you. And they know who I am, so they don't take it like, oh, what's happening here? You know, she's making a move, you know. But my friend and I were very close. Like, we talk about everything. You know, like the other night he called me, he had woman problems. Like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. And I'm like, just calm down. You know what I mean?
Not woman problem.
So, very close, you know, but yes, I will come back for that.
Thank you. And on that note, we will be right back. Follow us in just a second. Thanks again to my stylist, Tammy D. Yeah, she got your girl right for this season. I will be back next week, girl. Hey. Now, we're still here with our guest, Yesley, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to finish your discussion about the church and how it infiltrated or influenced your life as a lesbian woman.
Oh, okay, yeah, I think that's a really, really good question because I feel like there's a lot of people in our community who are lost. They feel unloved because it's not easy, even in this day and age, it's not easy being in a person of this community.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
There's a lot of judgment.
never ending. But it seems like that's what this world is. Everything is judgmental. But I thank you for opening up this platform for me to be able to speak on it because I think it's very important that we don't only speak about our sexuality, but also about
Our experiences.
Our experiences, our spirituality, our faith.
Right.
You know, however which way that goes for you. So for me, I think as I was saying earlier, I wasn't raised in the church, but you were expected to know God, even though nobody taught you of God.
Right.
So as I became a teenager and I really became rebellious and I really got involved in things, and as I grew into an adult, when I left my parents' house, I was very sheltered in my parents' house. Like, they kept me in the house. There was no cheerleading after school or the movies or the mall with your friends. You went home and that's what it was. It wasn't you're going to be on the phone for 5 hours, none of that. It was straight home and that's what it is, you know. So when I left the house, I didn't know that I had to get a job and I had to pay bills and, you know, I didn't know that I had to do these things because nobody had that conversation with me,
Right,
you
right.
know. so it was so much happening at the same time, and also things didn't end well with my family. You know, so all of these things, the only thing that you know your whole life is now broken. Then you go off into this world where you know absolutely nothing. So I became very broken and very lost. And I think that a lot of the things that I did when I was younger, as a young adult, came from being lost.
Right.
Came from looking for something that I didn't even know what it was, because I had such a huge hole within me, you know, trying to
Right.
fill it in. So, anyways, long story short is I fell really deep into depression, severe anxiety. I used to have a lot of anxiety attacks. And so it really started to change for me when I used to work at this hair salon. We had this client. She was a pastor. She would
Okay.
always, and she opened her own church one, and she said, "You should come see me." And I was like, "I don't know. I'll think about it," because from what I knew about the Bible, not God, what I knew about the Bible was that because I was gay, I was going to hell.
Right.
God wouldn't want me. You know, like I had a friend one time, she said, she told me she got baptized, and I was like, okay, one day. She was like, well, why one day? Why not today? And I said, because God doesn't want me like this. And she was like,
Oh.
God wants you either way. And I was like, no, he wouldn't
Exactly
want
the
me
way
like
you
this.
are.
But deep inside, I'm thinking, he doesn't want me gay. You know what I mean?
I understand.
So when when the client approached me, who is also a lesbian, and to know that she was a pastor, I was kind of like, you know,
Like,
like,
the door was opening a little bit,
are you sure? You know what I mean? So it really got deep for me when I broke up with my ex of 8 years, and things were bad, and I was so desperate. My friend from high school, I always kept in touch with her. Her mom was like super, super deep, Jesus-loving Christian. And I would go to her house and cry and cry and cry. She would always say, God says change is coming. You know, God loves you. God, you know, all
Right.
that. And I would just be like, ah, you know. And after she died, it was like everything that I needed, she had already poured into me. So finally, one day, at this point, I was now dating my wife, Alexis.
Okay.
We were friends first. Now we were dating. So I was sitting in my living room one day. At this point, I had lost everything. You know, everything I knew was gone. And so we were sitting in the living room, and I was sitting in the living room by myself. Nobody was in my house. And I heard somebody say, "Yesly." And I was like, okay, nobody's there. Maybe it's just me. And I heard it again, "Yesly." And then this time I was like, yes. And all I heard was, "It's time." And instantly I just knew what that meant. I didn't think about it. It's just something in me new. So I started going to the church, and I started going often and often. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't know why people were rolling on the floor. I didn't understand why people were crying.
Right.
I didn't understand why people were shouting. I didn't understand what she was talking about, the anointing. What? I don't even know what that means. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't get it. But I kept going and going, and hearing that somebody loved me wasn't enough. For me, it was, I had to break away because I left the church. I left the church, and I left hurt.
Right.
And I had to, and now Katrina, this is where me and her always have the conversation. I'm not a Bible person. I'm a challenger. I challenge God daily. I want to know you for you, not what they're telling me you are.
Right.
You know, I want to know if you do love me, not what they're saying that whether you love me or not. You know, so so I spend a lot of time trying to find what that is. And prayer, because I had to learn how to pray. I didn't know what prayer was. You mean I got to
Right.
sit here and talk quietly? I don't even understand what that means. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it took many, many, many years, but I had to develop a relationship with God
For yourself.
for myself.
And that's really what it boils down to, is finding that place and finding God for yourself and having that learning and understanding and your personal experience so that you know exactly who he is and where he is in your life.
Exactly.
And on that note, I just want to thank you so much for coming. I truly, truly appreciate you and our time together. Yesly, why don't you tell the guests exactly where you can be reached again on social media?
I was like, okay, yes. You can reach me on Instagram at home with Yesli. Yesli spelled Yesli. At home with Yesli.
Awesome. And thank you guys again for tuning in to our lovely show, Queer Conversations. This is season 2, and we are super excited about all of the great things that we are bringing to you. Follow us on social media at Queer Conversations or on Facebook. And remember, we are changing the world one conversation at a time. See you guys next month. Have a good night.